1. Congruent triangles. Congruent triangles are triangles with the same sides and angles. This means that all of the corresponding parts, the sides and the angles, are the corresponding parts, are congruent. Congruency statements. When triangles are congruent, we can write a congruency statement. So in this picture, you'll see that triangle ABC is marked with congruent sides to triangle FED. But notice I didn't name those in the same order of the way that they correspond. We can make this easier by noticing the congruency marks. So we have side AB on this triangle on the left is congruent with one little hash mark to side ED over here. And side BC corresponds and is congruent to side EF. And side AC corresponds and is congruent to side FD. Now, I still didn't really pay attention to the exact order that those would need to go in, because not only are the sides corresponding and congruent, but so are the angles. So notice that angle A is congruent to angle D, angle B is congruent to angle E, and angle C is congruent to angle F. So a valid congruency statement must match all of the corresponding angles and sides. Now, the easiest way to do this is to correspond the angles, and everything else is going to fall into place, and all of the sides will match up that way. So if you notice, they've written theirs in the order of A, B, C, right here with triangle ABC, and then they did D, E, F. Now, they happen to be alphabetical, and that does happen a lot, but it does not have to be, so please don't rely on that. But within this congruency statement, you're going to not only be able to match up the angles, but you can match up the sides. Watch this. Segment AB, which is the first two letters here, should match up with segment DE, the first two letters there. Let's see, AB has a onesie, and DE has a onesie. Okay, let's look at the next two. BC should match up with EF. BC, which is a twosie, should match up with EF, and it does with the two marks. And then finally, AC, which is across the first and the last, should go with DF. Let's see if it does. AC, DF. So this congruency statement, triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF, is in the right order. Third section, CPCTC. What is that? CPCTC stands for several other longer words, and it stands for corresponding, write this down, parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Now let's take that CPCTC back up to our congruency statement, and we determined that these two triangles are congruent. They're congruent because all of the corresponding parts of the two triangles are congruent. If we know two triangles are congruent, then we know that every pair of corresponding parts is also congruent. So let's go down here to the practice problems. Directions. List all congruent angles and sides excuse me, given the congruency statement. Okay, so I've got triangle JKL is congruent to triangle PQR. Angles are super easy to do. Take the first one, angle J, write it congruent to the angle, pick the first one, P. second and second. Angle K is congruent to angle what? Q. And lastly, angle L is congruent to angle R. When we write our sides, those are going to be segments, so we're going to use our segment signs. And again, we can do this right from the congruency statement. You don't even have to have pictures. You could draw pictures if you wanted to. So I'm going to do my sides, and I'm going to pick the first two and the first two. So I'm going to say segment JK is congruent to segment PQ. And segment KL, that's the second and the third one, is congruent to segment QR, and segment JL is congruent to segment PR. Now at the bottom it says write another valid congruency statement, and all they want you to do is mix them up a little bit. So I can take my first triangle JKL and call it something else like KLJ. And that triangle would be congruent to, and all you have to do is match the letters. K goes with Q, L goes with R, and J goes with P. So any order you put it in is correct as long as they match up with the original congruency statement. Now, you do number 2.